So, I know you're all waiting to hear Bhuvanya. Bhuvanya, as I had very briefly mentioned, went on a solo trip to the Valley of Flowers, and she will tell you more about her trip. And there's a very exciting news which I will share after her presentation. And as usual, kindly keep yourself muted and also switch off your
You're on mute, Vijay. We can't hear you.
Oh, I just muted myself as I was speaking. Sorry. Yeah. So any questions you have, please post in the chat box. We will go to them and take them one by one after Bhuvanya's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay, and morning, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Is my screen visible for everyone?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet, Bhuvanya.
Okay. Is it visible now? Sorry.
Not yet.
No.
Okay. Let me just do that. Share.
Share, ma. Yeah. There. Yes.
There?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining the meeting. So I wanted to share my experience about my recent trip to the Valley of Flowers, and I've been I've been with MNS for close to a decade now, and I've had the opportunity to travel across the country, and it was always Himalayas that fascinated. So when I had this thought of doing a trek and to a solo one, so this was like I had no second thought about it, and it was very clearly that I wanted to go to Himalayas. But of course, the location was something which I wanted to finalize, and so I did a bit of research, and some of the top uh, uh, thing which came up in the list was Spiti Valley, Dharamshala, and then Valley of Flowers. And so I went with Valley of Flowers for a couple of reasons. One, of course, I think the name itself sounds very magical, so that is one. And yes, this trek also had this option of doing two treks. It's like from the same base camp. One was for Valley of Flowers, and the other one was Hemkund Sahib. And it is also a moderate trek, so I wanted to try this rather than a very easy one. So as a beginner, I wanted to try this. So those were a couple of reasons. And the moment I finalized the location, the first person I got in touch was with Banu ma'am, because I know she's the one who's like explored this location in and out, and speaking to her gave a lot of comfort for me to plan the trip. And then it was around June, and so I understood the right time to visit was between July and October. So I planned it end of July, and it was an 8-day trip. So I took a route of Chennai to Delhi by air, and Delhi to Haridwar by train, and the rest of the journey was by road. So it took I took almost 8 days. It was like 7 days is ideal, but then I had one day of cushion because of the weather forecast and things like that. So the first day, of course, it was very exciting and very interesting for me, because I reached Delhi, and then I was waiting for the train for Haridwar, and there was a lot of delay of 3 to 4 hours. And finally, when I reached Haridwar, it was like it was a very very different situation. It was full. The place was fully crowded, and I really didn't know the reason. And then I understood it was the Kavod Yatra that day, and it was a night of Shivratri. So what you see on this picture, it's very similar one of what are in South, the Kavadi, which they carry to Parani. But then if you also notice, there'll be two parts and at the end of the Kavod. So they people across north, like from UP, Haryana, Bihar, they come down here, and then they fetch the Ganga water and then go back to their hometowns. So that night when I landed at the railway station, there were 4 crore people. and I was completely lost. I really don't know where to go and how to exit the place, because my plan was to go to Rishikesh from Haridwar, which is like a 40 minutes to 1 hour journey by road. So I took help of some of the policemen who were manning people, and then I also kind of walked close to 5 kilometers to reach a place to find transport to. Unfortunately, I met some, like, one professor from Ghaziabad, so he was also heading. So I tagged with him, and then finally managed. So I reached Rishikesh that night at around 12 o'clock, and I was very skeptical. I thought 12 o'clock, how is it going to be? But it was a lively town, with the cafes and international people, like, it was like full of, it was very active. So I really didn't have any kind of skepticity, except for the panic when I saw the crowd in Haridwar. I think it was very smooth. So I had already booked my hostel at Rishikesh. So I went there directly, and then I crashed because the next day morning I wanted to kind of leave a little early. So I took a 5:30 bus. So there were various modes of transport, because to reach to Valley you will have to go to Joshimath. Joshimath is a place that gives you the option to go to either Badrinath, Valley of Flowers, or Hemkund Sahib. So you have an option of going by taxi or bus. So I choose bus, and that was a very it was a 10 to 11 hour of road journey uphill, and it was very exciting because the entire route was scenic, and I couldn't take my eyes out of the window, and had very interesting discussions with locals, because it was bus, a lot of people came in and went out. So I also stopped over at Dev Prayag, which is like the confluence of uh, Bahirati and Alaknanda, where the Ganges is the starting point there, and the other Panch Prayags. And a lot of people were also en route for their Chardham pilgrimage, the Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath, Kedaran. So this is the route, same route. They will have to take a little bit of diversion at one point. And it was for me, landslides was like very, because there were small landslides and there was some which was huge, but it was very interesting because people just were very used to it, and even it took 1 hour at some places. There was no anxiety, there was no hue and cry, people were very calm. And so it, like, I think that Garhwal people are very used to tourists. They were very polite and very friendly. They spoke about their culture, food, and all interesting aspects of it. So the 10 hours journey was like not like 10 hours for me. It was really interesting and exciting. And so I reached Joshimath around 5:30 p.m. So it took 12 hours for me to reach Joshimath. And like I mentioned, Joshimath people start take trip to either Badrinath or Valley of Flowers or Hemkund Sahib. And Oli. Oli is also a location which most of you might know. It is the skiing capital of India. So a lot of tourists go to Oli as well. My next stop was to go to Govindghat. Govindghat is again 1 hour drive from Joshimath. Again, that was through shared cabs and all those things. So I reached there around 6:30, and that's where Laknanda was gushing the stream, and it was like still that sound is reverberating in my mind. It was so loud, and it was uh, absolute vibration. Great it was to be there. A lot of people who go on the Hemkund Sahib trek, basically it's a pilgrimage for Sikhs. They stay over at Govind Ghat, that has a lot of gurdwara and a lot of other staying options for people. So I stayed there in a place called Pulna, which is again a 3 kilometers from Govindghat. So basically, that is a place which is the last motorable road for anyone to start the trek. So there I stayed in a homestay. So very hospitable people, and it was again that evening I spent to kind of have a good chat with them, and they really spoke about the 2013 flood, where which was like we all saw it in news, but then they showed the how the river had changed its course with the debris and the amount of water that came in through. So I really saw some of their old homes standing in middle of the river right now. A lot of perseverance, and people have really come back to what they are now, and they're like happy people. So they really didn't complain much about those natural calamities. And so this Pulna is the starting point of the trek. And so the next stop was to go to Gangaria, because it is a 10-kilometer trek. And from there again, it splits into two directions for Valley of Flowers and Hemkund Sahib. So the next day morning, I started around 7:30 in the morning, and it was when I started, like in 500 meters, I saw a lot of trekkers, mules, a lot of them, and pilgrims. So for the moment, it looked like a bazaar, so very active, and and it was also kind of a little, uh, uphill, and I was like initially struggling to take my pace, but then I kind of got a hang of it in a while, and it was brilliant, because again the route all through it was really stunning. And so it took close to 6 hours for me to cover the distance. And it was raining in between, but then it was absolute great view. So all the pictures, whatever I'm sharing is the one I took by my phone. So it doesn't justify the beauty, but believe me, it's like amazing. The place was absolute serene. So I reached Gangaria around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, same day. So Gangaria is basically the base camp for Valley of Flowers and Hemkund Sahib. So it's a very small town, and a stretch of say 500 meters or so, and people can reach here by either by trekking or by mules, or they do have porter services. And there is also a helipad located in Gangaria. So people did come by from Govindghat to Gangaria. You can take the helicopter services that is available. And it's like it's definitely not the remote location or something, like, because the moment I reach there and want to have a tea or something, then guy asked me to pay in Google Pay. So I was like, wow. So because they were like, perception that ATMs are not there, and then this and that. So it's like the network was still there, Hemkund Sahib. So I didn't really feel it remote in any reason. But this place again is very active only during this period of June, July to end of the year. And again, later it's covered in snow. So this comes active for 6 months, and then again, it's quite there. So the two treks here are, like I mentioned, Valley and Hemkund. So if you ask me the percentage, I would say it is 70% of the people go to Hemkund, because that's pilgrimage for Sikhs, and 30% to Valley. So uh, it's for and the route is also very different. Like the Hemkund one is much broader, and the Valley's pathways are very, very narrow, because Hemkund Sahib also takes the mules, because mules carry the pilgrims, but Valley doesn't have the mule services. You have to do it by walk, or you do have porter service for people who are not able to do that. So I choose to do the Hemkund one first because of the distance. It's around 6 kilometers, and also the altitude. So and followed by the Valley of Flowers. So this the next day morning, so I started my trek. Again, brilliant views. So this is one of the first time I haven't carried my binoculars or cameras, so because of course cannot carry too much of luggage as well. But still, like, seeing it directly, brilliant glaciers, mountains, peaks, water flows, uh, can't express more than that. So it was beautiful all through. And so I was doing at a pace of close to 1 kilometer per hour, but it was much doable. It's not that because you also see the pilgrims, old and young. I think there was a lot of I felt that there was a lot of magical strength, which one could feel, because it didn't feel really tired and all. But of course, some people had the trouble, and they had to go back because of the altitude. But otherwise, it was the 6 hours was like a new world. It was a bliss, to be honest. So, and reaching there, of course, weather was around 6 degree there, so it was freezing cold. So the Gurudwara offered blankets, food, so it was a great blessing at that point. And there was also a small temple, Lakshman temple at the top. So this Garwal people believe that the temple was the one which was there before even the Gurudwara came. Very small temple, great vibration, and it's believed that Lakshman did a tapas there, and it's also mentioned Rama. And so and there was the holy Sikh lake, so it was like completely frozen, but then whatever little water was there, the pilgrims were taking bath in that. So that shows a different level of uh, belief. So that's and of course, it was a great reward to see the Brahma Kamal all through the trip. Like, it's absolutely delight, because it just here it's not on a reachable distances, but then they were blooming almost everywhere. And Himalayan blue poppy was all through the, like, pathways. It was like everywhere. So Brahma Kamal, of course, because of this altitude, you don't get to see it in Valley of Flowers. So it was like, it's an additional reward other than the experience I had while walking to Hemkund. And of course, descending was like, it was very easy compared to the climbing. It just took say roughly around 3 hours. But while coming back, of course, it was very engaging, because upward was very focused. So was talking to fellow trekkers, and then people, pilgrims, young and old. So it was very interesting. A lot of foreigners were also doing this trek. So very interesting insights and discussion perception. So it was very engaging. Really enjoyed the whole thing. Really didn't feel the pain of the trek. I was really enjoyed it. So the next day, it was the Bali trek, which I wanted to specifically do it. So like I mentioned, this doesn't have the uh, mules, this doesn't have the pilgrim. So it's only for the nature lovers. And this place was like, I've been to parts of Europe, but definitely this is underrated. And after visiting, in fact, I also, Ambika and Banu ma'am had shared the pictures. It looks like, it's still, it's like, it's not that it was good and now it's really gone down in shape and all. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think it should be in people's wish list if someone wants to really see a place which is like a fairyland. So it was a fairyland for me. So the pathway is very narrow. You have to be a little focused, otherwise, it's not that you have some hand railings and all those things. You really need to be careful, but then you will enjoy the air. And it's like, so it's like the place was bumming with positivity and vibration. So I did spend quite a lot of time there to absorb it and really enjoy it. It I think it can only be experienced more than me explaining it. And it was like a carpet of flowers. I mean, you can walk to whatever stretch you like to. It's like more of a flat land at the top. So it was beautiful, and full of bees buzzing and making the place happening for whatever it looks. So like I mentioned, the air was so serene, and you can actually feel it divine being there. So it was a fantastic experience. So I spent close to 2 to 3 hours staying there, and then started to descend. So it was a superb experience for me to do both the treks, in this trip. So that's briefly on what I wanted to share, because my pictures and my words might not justify it, because it was so beautiful. And for anyone to experience such thing, you should definitely do it, and it's definitely doable. It's not that it's a very difficult trek or something, but of course certain things you should definitely keep in mind, because it's a trek, so you definitely need to be prepared on the part of on your stamina. Otherwise you might feel you might not be able to. And a lot of people took mules halfway, or even people went back, so you don't want to face those situations. So it's better you kind of plan that in aspect of the stamina. And gears, here I'm not referring to the cameras, it's only the shoes, the jackets, the ponchos, the bags, because a bag makes a difference to an entire thing. And you really need to kind of not carry all the unnecessary things which we usually end up doing. So smart packing is very, very important. That determines your speed and the pace. So that's something I definitely wanted to kind of highlight here. And yeah, so everyone has a pace, so it's not that there is a pressure on anyone. So you can easily do it at your own pace, and you can at the same time enjoy this trek. So, and like I mentioned earlier, it is definitely doable. It's not a very difficult one at all. After experiencing it, I can certainly say that. um, so the entire trip actually, just not only gave me an experience of what travel means, because like every trip, most of the time, we get the luxury of someone organizing it, planning it, and then everything managed. You don't need to really worry about it. But then doing the small things by yourself, and I didn't go through an agency or a guide to do this. So that was an experience, and I really enjoyed it. Meeting people, different people, interfacing, staying in different places, and it was absolutely safe for whether it's men, women. There's no difference here. So I really didn't encounter any hindrance at all through the trip, though it was an 8 days trip. And end of the day, it gave me a great sense of satisfaction and a lot of confidence. So I would definitely recommend people to kind of give it a chance if you really think of something in your mind like this. So that's briefly I wanted to share with everyone, and thank you. I also have a link of a short blog which I kind of captured because I wanted to have a good track of what all I covered and what all I did. So um, thank you. So that's something which I really thank Vijay uncle for giving me this opportunity, and he really encouraged me to kind of share the experience. So thank you everyone for your time and patience. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bhuvanya. So where are you headed next? That's my only question to you.
Yeah, so meeting people of the same interest, you get to connect with. So definitely, Annapurna Summit is something in my mind. So I'm
Oh,
planning
wow.
towards it.
Oh, wow.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. All the very best to you. All the very best.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So if there are any questions, anybody would like to ask a specific.
Devika here, Bhuvanya, congratulations first. Can you
Honest, Devika.
Slowly. Yeah. Can't hear you, Devika. Can't hear you.
can you just tell me, is the trash anywhere there where you manage?
Sorry, your voice was breaking. I couldn't hear the complete question.
Oh, okay.
We'll
I'm
add.
talking to you. I'm talking to you from Mumbai. Was it? I mean, could you connect to banks and ATMs, or do you need cash on the trip?
Okay. Did you have to carry
Yeah,
cash?
so that's what people said. So I also did that. But honestly, like I mentioned, there were network all over, and Google Pay was there everywhere. So it's nothing to worry about it
Okay.
at all. But
Okay.
you can always have a backup. But the ATMs were available only till going like Joshimath. Beyond that, you will not find any banks or ATMs.
Okay. Congratulations as a lady to achieve this trip on your own.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Bhuvanya. It was lovely. Actually, like Bhanumati was mentioning, we did a trip in 1992 to the Valley of Flowers. Of course, probably some things have changed since then, but it was, as you rightly said, it's a magical place. It was an amazing thing. And we were able to stay almost See, those days, GMVN had a couple of rooms in the Bavaria Place. That has been, I think, broken down now, and people are not allowed to stay there anymore. So we stayed there, and we had a wonderful time. It was
Wow.
amazing. But
That's
anyway,
great.
you doing this, and the Hemkund Sahib trek is quite a tough trek. We found that quite a tough trek even then. I am surprised that you didn't take too much trouble to go there. I mean, that's what I gather from your narrative. Anyway, thank you and congratulations.
Sure.
Bhuvanya.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's a question to you from Dr. Kalpana. What made you decide to go solo?
Yeah. So the fundamental thing was to completely interface with new set of people. That was the main reason, I would say. So that triggered me to do the solo, and also wanted to be completely planning things on my own, not be dependent on anyone. So reason two. These are the two things which was on top of my mind to do this solo.
Oh, good. And so now that gives you the confidence to do the next one, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, sure.
Couple of years down the line, I think you should start organizing trips for MNS also. Yeah, good, great. Any more questions?
Yeah, so yeah, I just want, I'm Kalpana here.
Sure.
So did you book your homestays and every part of the trip right earlier itself, or were there some things that you did like when you were on the move, like you didn't know where to go and things like that? So earlier you said you were not sure about several things, but then things kind of worked out. But
Right.
what about the homestays? What about places you stayed? Were they all planned beforehand?
Yeah, so I did plan about the Rishikesh and the homestay in Pulna. So on the Gangaria one, people gave a bit of confidence that you can go there and find places, and it was easy. It's not that it was a very difficult one. But one day, I had extra day in my hand, and that was completely unplanned because of weather. I kind of wasn't sure whether I need to come the next day or stay over. That day I stayed at the Gurdwara. So because it was too late and it was already 7 o'clock when I reached the base, and then it was raining. So I just approached Gurdwara, and it was a very great experience, and itself was a separate experience for me. But it wasn't really something to be anxious about. Everything can be done even at the last moment, except for your travel. In case if you're booking your flights and train, those things definitely you need to be prepared of. Accommodation and stay, you can even the last minute changes and things. It was easy one to get it done.
Wow. That is good. All right. Any more questions, please, to Bhuvanya? No? So thank you so much, Bhuvanya, for very quickly
Thank you.
putting
Thanks,
together this
everyone.
presentation. And I know I surprised you by a call just day before yesterday. I'm very grateful to you for having done this for MNS. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.